Tell us your crazy cab driver stories. Cabby Nick with 4 or 5 people after a night of heavy drinking. We get in and it's a kid in his early 20s driving. We all end up talking and he's telling us how he just moved here from Ukraine, trying to save money, etc. He seems pretty normal, but when he gets close to our apartment he looks at me and goes, "Wanna see some crap?" I say sure. He then proceeds to floor it, pull the e-brake and spin a 180, Ace Ventura style, onto the opposite sidewalk, squeezing literally by inches between a building and a lamppost on the corner, then gunning it half a block, still on the sidewalk, and politely dropping us off at our building's front door. Not unlike a boss. You met Nico Bellic. Okay, I was working an internship at a place and it was my second last day at work. However, it was also a buddy's birthday in another city. I had a great idea of calling in sick, getting a buddy to drive me from the city I was in to the city the party was at, then catch a bus back. Getting there was fine. However, after many drinks and sushi, the 8 PM bus time was nearing and I called a cab. However, the cab took freaking forever to get there, so it was around 7:55 when I got picked up and asked for the man to race to the bus terminal. The driver was of Bangladesh descent and it was sundown. He calmly explained to me that there was no way I was making this bus. Then he noted it was Ramadan and asked if he could eat. I had no place to be, so I said sure. We wind up going to his place, and I eat dinner with him, his wife and his kids. Awesome home cooked food. Then he drives my butt to another city free of charge. On the way there we discuss his future plans of importing textiles. I love this. This is the stuff of life. Man, I live in Cairo and we have some weird cabbies. Once I was going to work and traffic was moving pretty well. All of a sudden, this BMW pulls out right in front of us, driven by some rich butt lady. I guess her servant had just finished washing the car, because someone had left a wash rag on the back of the BMW. My cabbie sees this and guns it. He is laughing his butt off and swerving through traffic after the BMW. He motions for me to roll down my window. We're going about 40-45 mph, and he pulls up next to the BMW. He yells for me to lean out and snatch the rag. So now I am leaning out of a car window with a crazy cab driver laughing maniacally, so giddy about the prospect of a new rag, and the rich lady is none the wiser. He's inching up really close so that the cars are basically rubbing together, and inching closer and closer. He's got a concentration face on now, and I managed to take the rag off the back of the BMW. Now he's honking his horn to celebrate victory and high-fiving and shouting and flashing his lights and everything. He pulls out his old rag from under his seat. Admittedly, his new one was better, and he goes, "Watch this," and throws it out his window at the BMW. We sped off. That was kind of an average commute. Not my story, but a friend's. After a night of partying with her girls, they all hop into a taxi and tells the cabbie where their apartment is. The cab driver turns around and starts flirting with them. During the drive, he asks them, "Have you ever heard of a disco taxi?" After the quizzical no, he whips out a colored flashlight and blasts some techno music, waving the light around until they get to their destination. I have no idea how much they tipped him, but I can only hope it was a generous amount. It's like the intro to Cash Cab but for the whole ride. Coming home late night in Chicago, cab driver has the partition closed, but his windows open so he can yell at women. He is yelling, "I have US passport. You come home with me." After a few minutes of this we start to talk to him and convince him that women don't care about US passports. If he wanted to lure women he needed to talk about his 401k and diversified portfolio. He asked what these things were, didn't care, and started to yell out the window, "401k, diversified portfolio, you come home with me." Strangely, he didn't succeed with any women that cab ride. I don't know how this has no other comments. I pictured this happening and non-dramatic humor made this more believable, relatable to than the other comments. I love getting harmlessly crazy cabbies. Stumbled into a cab driven by an old Turkish driver at about 3 AM on Hamburg's Reeperbahn. Was very drunk. My apartment was like 20 minutes away. After about 10 minutes of drunken dozing I looked to my left and there was an old Turkish woman sitting next to me, knitting, headscarf and shawl on. I was like WTF as I hadn't noticed her as she melted into the beaded upholstery. Driver, who is this woman? She is my wife. Why is she here? For protection. To protect you? No, I have this to protect me. Pulls machete out of door pocket and starts waving it around like the guy in Indiana Jones. One time, my girlfriend and I were taking a cab from Georgetown over to the 9:30 club in DC to see a Wilco show. We were from out of town visiting and now very accustomed to cab rides. He takes off like a bat out of heck. We are being flung back and forth in the seat from all this race car-esque driving. We begin to hear sirens and my immediate thought is he was getting pulled over for this driving. Nope. There was a fire truck in front of us en route to a call. We notice the cab driver get agitated with us and all of a sudden he veers off on a detour. We are flying down a side street and literally beat the fire truck to the scene of the fire. Cab goes past without missing a beat and eventually drops us off at the venue. He then proceeds to apologize for the delay and taking so long. Till crazy taxi is real. I used to work at the Borders bookstore in downtown San Francisco. This Borders is on the same block as the Hilton Hotel, so there are always cabs lined up in front of the Borders. They are waiting on the Hilton guests to come out since they tip well. This causes this particular spot in San Francisco to become extremely crowded as there can be 20 plus cabs lined up just waiting. It was very annoying when I worked there. So, one day I'm doing my Borders thing when everyone, customers and employees alike, start whispering and pointing at an older, white-haired guy and his large bodyguard. It was Mr. San Francisco himself, Tony Bennett. He was nice and took pictures with people and signed a few autographs. He only stayed for maybe half an hour. Shopping. He waved goodbye to his fans, Borders employees and started heading towards the long line of cabs. His bodyguard walks around and opens the back door of one and Mr. Bennett sits down. As the bodyguard is walking around to get in the other side, the cab driver flies out of his cab and starts screaming in Arabic, I guess, at the guard. The cabbie starts screaming that he is waiting for a Hilton guest and that the old man in the back had to get out. Keep in mind, this cabbie was like 25th in line. So the guard goes back around and apologizes to Mr. Bennett and helps him out of the cab. Another cabbie saw what was happening and apparently recognized Tony Bennett because he shot forward out of the cab line into oncoming traffic just to pick them up. Off topic, but I miss that Borders. I only discovered how awesome it was the week before they moved all the seating out of there, It was Super Bowl Sunday. I can't remember who was playing or what the score was, but I was shitted. A bunch of us left the house party we were at and started walking the couple kms back to our houses, which were all pretty close together. I got sidetracked in the apartment's community room where people put crap they don't want. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. Anyway, walked out with a new wooden pepper shaker, one of those massive ones that you twist. Killer find, dude. So by this time my buddies had made it about a block away from me. I could see M and hear M, but I didn't want to catch up to them. Too tired from watching all that football. I tried to walk a little faster, but it was pretty clear I was going to need a cab if I realistically was going to gain any ground on this decidedly Sherpa-esque troop. So I jumped in a cab that was parked on the side of the road. It was sitting there. The light was on. I didn't think twice. First thing that hit me was the smell. I said, "Did you just hotbox this freaking cab?" The driver, a Mexican guy who later introduced himself as Art, gave me the best answer I've ever heard in my life. What's the right answer? Next thing you know, he is driving along and I'm using his little taxi driver identification as roach clips. It was awesome. We got back to my pad and I brought my new friend driver with me. "Look what I got," I said to my roommates, meaning the cool wooden pepper shaker. They, of course, thought I was talking about the 40-year-old Mexican guy that was all cotton-mouthed and key-eyed. I started hooking the guy up with bud and he would drive me around the city and let me hotbox and drink in the car before the clubs or shows or whatever we were doing. He worked an airport route most of the time, so whenever I had friends coming to Vancouver, I would pick them up with Art. Art and I would be all quiet, not let on that we knew each other, and I'd pull out a massive chonga and just hotbox the crap out of the cab. My friends would freak and I'd be like, "Don't worry about, he probably doesn't even realize," all whispers. It was super funny. Then we'd put it out and Art would be like, "Do you mind if I hit that?" Something to that effect, and my buddies would trip. It was hilarious. My mom's boyfriend drove taxi for a living. He was the awesome driver that everyone wants, and he had a lady prove it to him. He picks this woman off the street because she had waved him down. She gets in and tells him where to go. About halfway through the ride, he gets to a red light. The lady asks him if he was straight. He is. So she asks if she has nice breasts. She lifts her shirt up, exposing perky D's. He says that they aren't bad. She fixes her shirt and looks him in the eyes and says, "I'll suck your dong for $3. My mom's boyfriend says sorry. My wife only lets me buy $2 W." The lady got mad, threw her fare at him, and got out the cab. The only tip he got was the awesome story to tell the world. The taxi driver died 1 month and 3 weeks ago, and this story was told at his funeral. About a week ago, I was in Bangkok with some friends, and we could not find our hotel. We were only going to be there for a night while we were catching a connecting flight. We were drunk when we booked the hotel. We were drunk at the moment, and we had not written anything down. A tuk-tuk driver approaches us, asks us where we're going, and I tell him the hotel name. I ask him if he knows where it is, and he says sure, it's close. 20 baht for the ride. I confirm with him a few times the name of the hotel. Each time he repeats the name. 30 seconds later I ask him what the name of the hotel is, and he can't say it. But I'm drunk and fine with a journey, so we pile into the tuk-tuk. He immediately takes us directly to a suit shop, where he asks us to pretend to be interested, so he can get a coupon for gas from the shop. We tell him we'll get him 4 liters of petrol if he'll take us to our hotel. But he really wants us to go to the suit shop, so we do. This is all fairly standard, and I wouldn't have posted this if this was the end. We get back in the tuk-tuk, drive off, and it becomes clear he is not ready to take us to our hotel yet. So we take out a bottle of sangsam, which is a Thai rum, and start drinking in the back. He goes nuts, and starts reaching into the back of the tuk-tuk, waving his hand at the rum. We apologize, and put the rum away, but now he's getting even more wild. Eventually we realize that he isn't telling us not to drink the rum, he was telling us to give it to him. So we hand our tuk-tuk driver the bottle. He takes huge pulls off it, and drives us 20 minutes away to a travel agency, where he again asks us to act interested. So we go inside, act interested, while he sits outside finishing our sangsam. We then get back in the tuk-tuk flying around the streets of Bangkok with our freshly drunk driver. He takes us to our hotel, and we pay him 20 baht. Everything went better than expected. Was in a cab and the driver didn't have the greatest English skills. Seemed odd with his conversations and I put it down to his limited English. As we got closer to my place crap got stranger. He told me things I needed to do before I died and crap was crazy. We got a few houses from mine and he said I must rape a nurse. I was like what the frick? Figured he must have some confusion with what he was saying. But then he locks the doors and starts telling me in fairly explicit details about how he raped a nurse and I really must try it. Finally let me out amid laughing and telling me promise I'd think about raping a nurse one day. Was not the most fun I've had as a lone drunken female at 5 AM. Locking the doors would have been where crap got real I'd imagine. I freaking hate it when cab drivers abuse their power over passengers. A friend of a friend a few cities away got a cab one time. The driver locked the doors, drove her up a mountain and raped her. Her boyfriend found this scumbag and he and a few of his mates hospitalized him. After a long night of drinking, a couple of friends and I hailed down a cab. The driver was on the phone, and we were drunkenly babbling the whole ride. 5 minutes before we're about to reach our destination, the driver hangs up, looks at us and says you guys like pee? We start dying of laughter, and the cab driver turns on the screen he had installed in his car. He was playing Brazilian gangbang pee, and we immediately die of laughter. Best TLDR ever. Was in Vegas and our hotel room was robbed. I spent 5 hours at the police station and hailed a cab to get back to the Venetian where my wife was. There was already a guy in the cab and he was going to Bailey's, right across the street from the Venetian. I told him about my fun day getting robbed and dealing with the police. When he got out he paid his fare plus an extra $5 for my trip across the street plus a nice tip. A minute later we pull into the Venetian and the guy wants full fare from where he picked me up. I refuse and the mother does the door locking thing, which instantly sends me into a rage as I was not having the greatest day to begin with. I start beating on the windows and screaming at the top of my lungs trying to get a doorman's attention. The guy then tries to drive out of the Venetian circle and I slap his head until he stops. By this time a doorman had run over and asked me what was happening. The driver starts lying about me trying to skip the fare and the doorman orders him to open the door and I finally get out, still screaming at this butthole and threatening him to get out of the car so I can beat his butt, which I was fully prepared to do as I had woken up that morning to learn that someone had actually gotten into our room while we were sleeping and managed to empty our bank account and max out our Sears card and gas card within an hour. The only money I had left was 2 black chips I left on top of the TV that they didn't see. I was at the Venetian. They had just opened and we learned that their air handling system was so strong that doors at the ends of hallways would not fully shut due to the force of the air. An employee accidentally let this info slip and then the manager denied it. At the police because they made no bones about the fact that they didn't care and weren't going to do anything about it. And especially because when something good finally happened in that nice guy took pity and paid my fare, some butthole was going to try and frick it up. Anywho, as it turns out, the doorman knew this cabbie well. He was, in fact, banned from the Venetian property because of crap like this. The cabbie dang near ran the doorman over, beating a hasty retreat. After 3 more days of haggling with my bank, credit card people and the hotel, I got all my money back plus $700 cash from the Venetian as a courtesy if I agreed not to pursue the door not closing thing. So we finally had a little bit of fun our last day there. I kept an eye out for that freaking cabbie too as we walked the strip but never saw him again. I was in a rickshaw in India. Every experience starts with me hoping I'm still alive at the end of the ride. I got in a cab to take me home from work. As I shut the bar, I managed late that night and didn't want to walk or bus home because I'd had a few beers with my staff after. I've done this exact on many occasions and the fare was always £4-5 British pounds, $7-9 US, depending on how many red lights stopped us. Not expecting any difference, about halfway through the journey I noticed the fare was already at £6 British pounds and 50 pence. So I said to the guy, "Hey, what's going on? My fare is already way over what it should be," and he pretty much told me if I didn't like it I could pay the total and get the frick out. I wasn't, as you can imagine, entirely cool with that, and I said something to that effect, along with some advice about how if he wanted to be more than a cabbie later on in life he might want to learn some manners and stop thieving off customers, especially regular ones. By this time, he had pulled over and refused to unlock the doors and let me leave till I paid the fare. So what did I do? Half drunk and furious? I got a 20 out of my wallet, threw it at the dashboard and snarled, "Keep the change and open the door, you thieving fricking see." I'm not joking. The guy's face turned freaking purple, but he did open the door. Did I leave it there? Nope. I walked round the front of the taxi to cross the road and gave him the finger with a big crap-eating grin on my face. And then the purple-headed, rate-hiking thief cabbie got out of his taxi and chased me down the street into a late-night shop, where he caught me between the cereal and baked goods aisles and painted my face black and blue. Shop clerk called police. Butthole driver lost his license. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.